Marla.
Hi, I went and changed into a pink sweater since I saw you were wearing pink tonight.
I love it. I love it.
Hi, welcome to everyone. We're so excited that you've decided to join the OrthoFi webinar. If someone from my team can give me a message in the channel to make sure that you're hearing us okay, that would be awesome. Okay, great, fantastic. Okay, so we're so excited tonight to have Jill Allen here with us. And Jill is just such an icon in this industry. She's an orthodontic consultant with a passion for helping doctors bring their practices to life. An interesting fact about Jill's consulting practice is that her and her team, they really specialize in startup practices and doctors in business 8 years or less. So I found that to be a really fascinating niche. And then also 8 years to retirement. So, she's got really a neat niche for practices that she works with the most often, although she works with, I know, many, many practices. And she offers customized solutions for each office that help them increase growth and streamline their processes. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started with Jill is that if you have any questions, make sure that you are putting those in the Q&A rather than the chat box. So we do need those there. And as we've talked about in the previous webinars, the OrthoFi webinar series that we're here with tonight is our industry expert series. And we are just, we kind of started this whole process with our Nexus meeting earlier this year and just had a great lineup of ways that we're helping, that practices can succeed in the midst of just a lot of winds of change that are blowing in our industry. I asked Jill at that meeting to predict what will happen in 2023. And she said that she believes technology will be used more than ever and that flexible payment arrangements are going to be the key to case acceptance. Thought that was pretty interesting look into the future. And Jill, we're so excited to have you here with us tonight. Can't wait to hear what you have to teach us.
Oh, thanks, Marla. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. And because I work with so many startup practices and, practices, just in general, definitely I see, especially now more than ever, flexible payments and us being able to meet patients where they are at is definitely what the future holds for us. So I am super excited. This was a really phenomenal conference to be at. And for any of you who maybe did not get a chance to be at the Nexus conference this past year here in February, I would highly encourage you to put that on your list for next year. It was, I can tell you from all of my clients that attended, they just thought that it was such good information. So with that, kind of in mind, I'm super excited I was challenged with talking about a pretty, what I'm going to say, a newer topic that probably a lot of you have not maybe put a lot of thought into or thought about. And that is about leveraging your time and thinking about doing and I'm going to put a little air quote here, doctor-less consults. And so, what I want you to hear from me is that I have been in the orthodontic industry for over 30 years now. And having had that much time in the industry, I can tell you that for some of you who may be on and listening, there was a time when we used to do 3- and 4-step consults, if you can believe that. And when the concept was brought up that we could actually bring a patient in and do an x-ray right there in front of them and talk about the x-ray, it was like, just this crazy commotion going on, at the time when we were talking about that. And slowly that was adapted and brought on and, has come to fruition. And what I love about that is, to think that we at one point we're doing these 3 and 4 step consults. Now we're down to a 1-step consult. And now I'm going to push you. I'm going to make you guys get a little uncomfortable to actually think about doctor-less consults. So let's jump right into this. So yes, you heard it right. You heard me say it. We are going to be talking about that for about the next 45 minutes. I'm probably going to make a few of you guys squirm out there. You're probably going to get just a little bit uncomfortable. But what I'm going to ask is that you give me, for the next 45 minutes, just an open mind. I want you to think about the possibilities. Don't be like the doctors of the past that said, there's no way we can go from a 4-step to a 3-step to a 2-step to a 1-step, because I promise you, we did all of that. And most of you are really enjoying the process of a 1-step. And now I want you to think about the possibility of doctor-less consults. So let's jump right in. So some of the things that I think are going to be important is thinking about, when we think about a doctorless consult, I really want you to think about what does that mean. And what I am not telling you to do is just throw caution to the wind. I am not saying, okay, tomorrow I'm just not ever, as a doctor, I'm not coming into my consults anymore. TCs, you've got this. What I want to do instead is give you maybe a plan to work your way through if you feel that your practice is ready for this maybe next evolutionary step in the consult process. So when we think about that, the first thing that I think is very important is, and I want you guys to hear me, if you are going to go down this road, I want you to do this with a experienced treatment coordinator. This is not something we start with a newbie. This is not something that I suggest my new practices start with when they've got a new doctor and a new TC. This is going to be something that we're going to at least start when we're working on getting the process in place. We're going to be working with an experienced doctor and experienced treatment coordinator. And so what I'm looking for is that relationship. And remember, I've been doing this for a long time. And for a big part of my career before I went into consulting, I was a treatment coordinator. And I worked with a doctor, Dr. Damon Caraway, where it was almost like a dance. Like I knew what he was saying. He knew what I was thinking. I knew when to laugh at the next joke. And I'm sure many of you, and I hope most of you will get to experience this, to have that really sweet dance with your treatment coordinator. And just where you guys are trusting each other, you're confident in each other, and you know that between the two of you, you're going to cover everything. So that's the first and most important thing that I think we need when we're evaluating, thinking about moving potentially into this doctorless concept realm. The next thing is, docs, I need you guys to really evaluate yourselves. And I need you to think, can I be open-minded about this? Number one, because I'm already making you uncomfortable and you're probably sweating a little bit right now, just me even talking about this. But can you be open-minded to do something a little bit different? Can you be patient in learning this? And can you potentially be a teacher? Can I push you a little bit to be a teacher, to teach your treatment coordinator some of the things that you may be looking for? So those are the things that I'm going to need from you. And then the last thing that I want you guys really thinking about is there enough time for you guys to really learn this process? And I'm going to break down this process as we go over these next 45 minutes here. But I believe that if you take the time to do the work, to put this process in place, you in turn will have extra time in your schedule to be able to get in more new patients. And ultimately, that's why we're talking about this, is because I want you to be able to leverage your time and really get more out of your processes. So where do we begin? I think that what we first have to do is be able to first come up with a timeline. And I really believe that if we plan something and we plan it out, then we will make our way through to the end. If we just jump right in and say, throw caution to the wind, and tomorrow, like I said, tomorrow we're starting doctorless consults, I'm not coming in, you guys got this, it's never going to work. So what I want you to do is start with a plan. And I'm going to be working through this tonight, but what we're going to be talking about are these 5 concepts. I want you to come up with a timeline. I want you to come up with a rule book for your TC. So we'll talk about that. We're also going to come up with what I would call a cheat sheet. We're going to really talk about our exam flow, and we're going to make sure, like I said, if we plan, we will succeed, that we have dedicated time for training. So let's jump in and talk about some of the things that I think a treatment coordinator really needs in order to be successful. So number one, I said we need to have them be experienced. But the second part is we need a treatment coordinator who's got a very confident attitude. And I would say, if you've been able to experience that working relationship with your treatment coordinator, where you know that you can step out of the room and he or she can finish, up that consult and can take that consultation to closure, that is, again, what we're looking for. Somebody that's very confident in speaking for themselves. We also need to make sure that they have a level that's beyond basic knowledge in that TC room. We need them to be able to read an X-ray. We need them to be able to identify a crossbite or identify, potential problems that are going on that doctors would be cued into. We need them to already have a good conversion ratio. Again, if any of my startups are on and listening, this is not where we begin in our startup practices. We're starting at that 50% conversion ratio. I'm talking to the practices that are 70% and above, where we already have that TC that's converting pretty consecutively. And somebody that's got a really strong sales drive. They are willing to take on more new patients. They're willing to learn to do more to be able to help your guys' practices. And we need somebody, I think, that has some clinical proficiency. So maybe, they really understand what those sequenced appointments are. They really understand how to explain the things that they should be able to explain without you as a doctor in the room. Then what I think we have to be able to do is give our TCs kind of a rule book. So again, we're setting the stage for success. So how do we define what that rule book is going to look like? I think of it as, okay, if you were in this consultation by yourself, or if I were a doc like Leanne talked about that was kind of doing a flyby in the consult, what are the things that as a treatment coordinator you're going to be confident in looking at, and areas where maybe they fall outside of that confident area? And what happens if we see this? So if I see a supernumerary in a panoramic X-ray, does this fall within a category that my TC can handle? Or does this fall within a category that she needs to, or he needs to involve the doctor with? So we have to kind of come up with that playbook. What's my TC comfortable with? What am I comfortable with them viewing? And then define what that is going to be. So the two of you are working together to come up with this rule book. From there, I think it's going to be really important that you guys evaluate your consult flow. So, have you done some time studies? Now, I know when I work with offices, we have certain times when we set up schedules and build schedules for offices where we know exactly when a doctor should be coming in. We know exactly how long a doctor should stay in that consult and when they should be leaving. But maybe for some of you, again, you've been doing this for a while, you haven't done those time studies, or you really are not sure exactly when doctor should be coming in. And the reason I think that this is important is because we're going to be making the time that our doctors are in there smaller and smaller. And so what we want to do is make sure that, especially when we're starting, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but we still are accounting for when a doctor may come in to that consult. In the event that our TC gets stuck, our clinic still knows they could lose their doctor, right? So we have to know when our time, evaluate our flow to know when our doctors may be needed. So docs, if you're sitting in your office and your TC has to call an audible and get you in there, you're not in the middle of doing a bonding at the same time. So again, this is what we're working up. We're coming up with our game plan for how to be successful at this. The next thing is, I think I'm going to call it a cheat sheet. We need to kind of come up with a cheat sheet for everybody so that in the event, like I said, our TC, will use the supernumeraries again. She's in there, she's doing her panoramic x-rays, she's doing her exam, and she sees, oh, I've got a supernumerary, and she's like, all right, now what was I supposed to do with this? She's got her little cheat sheet, supernumerary. Doctor wants me to go into the office, show them the x-ray before I finish up, and we will determine if he needs or she needs to come in or not, whatever that is. So you guys are kind of coming up with kind of your pre-planned way to help your TC be successful. And doctors, the other thing that you are doing is this is kind of giving you that comfort zone to know, okay, I've given them the rule book, they've got their cheat sheet, and I know that they aren't running rogue in there. So if this or this or this comes up, they know what they're doing with it. Some other things, to think about, medicines, maybe you guys, and it's funny, I was just having a conversation with my mom who's went through chemo in the past year, and we were kind of talking about some dental work that she needs. And I was saying, Mom, you need to make sure that you let, the dental office know all the meds that you are on, because it can affect da, 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 da. So you guys may need to go through that. Docs, these are things that you don't necessarily think about, because it's just part of what you do every day. But if you're going to entrust your treatment coordinator to help be your mini-me, to help be your, your second person, you need to give them some of that knowledge. So maybe on their cheat sheet, they've got a list of, when I'm looking at a health history, here are the medicines that I'm being aware of, to know that if I see this medicine, I need to talk to my doctor, I need to bring my doctor in, whatever that is. So your cheat sheets are just those quick things. Maybe your TC has this on their computer that they can pull up right away. Maybe it's a physical pad. I don't know. Everybody's got it a little bit differently. But I think that it is key to, again, helping your treatment coordinators be successful. From there, we're going to really think about now, okay, we've come up with our game plan, we've come up with our cheat sheets and our rule book. Now, what I want you to think about is, how can, if I start implementing this, how can it affect my schedule? And what will it do to my schedule? So my hope, if you guys are still staying open-minded, and I hope you are, my hope is that as you are thinking about this, you're thinking, oh yeah, okay, Jill's talking about this so that I can be getting more new patients possibly into my practice, whether it's during my day, maybe it's during a non-doctor day, or, or a debond day, or whatever that is. So what I want you to do is, when you're getting ready to implement, the first thing is, I want you to kind of ease into this, and we're going to talk about this, but I want you to think about shortening up your booking windows for maybe some of these consults. And also thinking about how, if we start to free up time, how and what else we can put into that. Now, if you've heard me talk in the past, I'm always talking about, if we can see our patients over longer periods of time, and we can be smart with how often we're bringing our adjustments in, ultimately, what makes us money? What produces for us new patient exams and starts? So if you're going to open up your schedule and we can get more new patient exams in, and that clears up your clinic a little bit for doctor time. Be thinking about what can you do, doctors, to be producing more in those open time periods. So something just to kind of put in there for you. So let's kind of talk a little bit about what this could, like I was just talking about, what can this potentially help you do? Can this help you get more exams in your day? Will this allow you more time in the clinic for productive appointments potentially? And maybe even thinking about, will it allow for more digital workflow time, within your schedule? So be thinking about, this isn't just about, more time for doctors to sit in their offices and play Tetris or, Warble or whatever. What I want you really thinking about is, how do I produce more with less, right? So how do I produce more with less of your time? And I think, as we have always thought about this, over the years, is unfortunately the doctor is the only person that can't be in two places at once. But I truly believe that doctorless consults can give us that opportunity, doctors, for you to start to be in more places at once, just like our digital coordinators are helping us do that. Some of the other things that we have going in our offices. Technology is there to help us if we can really embrace it. So we talked about our playbook, we've talked about our scripting, or we've talked about our cheat sheets. We've talked about maybe if we evaluate our schedule and how that can help us. The next thing I want you guys to really evaluate is your scripting, because here's the deal. The scripting that you have right now, if you start to implement doctorless consults, is not going to work. And what I need everybody to think about is, we communicate with patients so differently in different ways now than we ever have, that you can't just say, oh, well, we'll just change the way we answer the phones. No, you need to be thinking about, how will we communicate potentially different with our new patients on a phone call, if we're still doing those, in our texts, in our emails, in our video content. I mean, think about all the different ways that our patients communicate with us and that we should be communicating with them. So if we're going to start to implement this new idea of a new way of doing consults, what I also want you to really be thinking about is every area that we need to adjust or tweak our scripting. So let's kind of talk about that. Like I just said, our new patient phone call, maybe we are, adding something in to, talk to a patient or a patient demographic about, would they be interested in meeting with the treatment coordinator and not the doctor in their exam, or setting it up in a way that we want them to hear it, that meets what we're getting ready to bring forward. How about through email? We may have to, if we're communicating a lot through email or two-way texting, we need to really think about, we don't want our front desk team going rogue on how they're writing out those emails or writing out those texts. Do we have scripted texts and scripted emails that are set up to convey the message that we want our patients to hear? And then same thing with video. I love it. I love to hear and to see that we've got doctors that are actually doing video conferencing or video memos out to their patients before they're even coming in to their exams, and saying, I'm so excited you're going to be coming in, you're going to be meeting with Jill, my treatment coordinator. I'm going to be reviewing your records and we're going to have a great treatment plan for you. So there's just so many ways that we can do this. And I'm going to tell you guys, one size does not fit all. What's going to work for one practice is going to be totally different from another. And that's okay. You just have to come up with your plan in the way that you want to make it work best for you. Now, what I want to do is I want to just talk a little bit about demographics. And I think that we are in such an interesting time, and I just want to point this out, that never in our industry have we had 4 different generations that could be coming into your practice. And the really crazy thing about that, and I'm going to talk about each of these in just a minute, is each of those demographics all communicate differently. They all want something different out of their exam. And what I need you docs and you treatment coordinators and you office managers to hear is you have got to be able to pivot. And it's, like I love on Friends, where they're yelling, pivot, 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 when they're, moving that couch around. That's the same thing that we've got to be able to do. We screamed that through COVID, but I really believe as we are moving along in the years and where we're going with the technology and where we're going with the generations that are coming into our practices, we are going to have to be willing to meet our patients where they are, not where we used to meet them in the past. So let's talk about that a little bit. Our very youngest generation right now is Gen Alpha. This is my grandbaby's generation, which is crazy for me to say. I've got two wonderful grandbabies, and they are the Gen Alphas. They are, they are going to be that younger generation that is starting to come in and fill up your ops pool. And what you guys need to do is you need to stay on top of understanding who, the millennials now are the patients of Gen Alphas, or are the parents of Gen Alphas. So think about that. Our millennials are the parents of our Gen Alphas. And so when we are thinking about that, we're actually communicating with the Gen Alphas and maybe what they're going to need as they come into our practice, but we're communicating with the parents, the millennials that are coming in, to get them on board with what they're going to do with their children. So think about that. Do some research out there. Understand the needs of these different generations. Our young adults now are actually our Gen Zs that are out there now, and that's even crazy to think about. We wanted to blame, or be like, oh, it's the millennials. It's the Gen Zs that are now our young adults in our practice. And the thing that's important to know is this generation has grown up doing everything online. And so when they think about picking up a phone and physically calling somebody, most of the time they're physically sick about picking up a call and physically calling somebody. So if you're a practice that is not communicating already through text and email, you're going to miss a whole generation and generations that come after them. So be thinking about that, because even though I'm talking about doctorless consults, I'm also talking about we have got to pivot. We have got to shift in the way we are communicating with the patients that are coming into our practice, and understanding again that everybody is doing it a little bit different. So what a Gen Z may be looking for out of their treatment, and the way as doctors we may communicate with them may be a little bit different. We have to be altering that, or our TCs need to be altering that a little bit. Our next generation is going to be the millennials that are in our practice. And believe it or not, these are the adults. These are the adults in your practice. And, these are our parents that are out there. They are the ones that are making decisions now. And again, the way that they make decisions about treatment is completely different than my generation, or generations before mine even. So they're going to do a lot of crowdsourcing. They already know if they like you or not. They've definitely found out from all their friends and family, in the moms groups and in the chat groups out there, before they've come in. And they truly do a lot of social proofing, and they want convenience. So believe it or not, you may be saying, oh, I would have a patient that would never want to come in and not see me. But yet think about the generation that's coming in. If it's a millennial mom, she may be saying, I want to communicate with you online. I want to come in. I want to have it be as efficient as possible. I want to get the information that I need. I want to make a decision, and I want to get going. So again, remember, who are you communicating with? And when you're thinking about possibly doing these doctorless consults, be thinking about the fact that you could, it really will work well for certain generations. And then I'm going to say, the fourth generation, though it's technically five, is the Gen Xers, which is my generation. Yes, I was the hippie long hairs, that had hair up to here and, lots of really great permed hair. And then the boomers. We still have boomers that could be coming into our practices. Now, the boomers and even some of our Gen Xers, we are of that previous generation. So if I've got some older, docs that are on here that have been doing this for a while and you're pretty set in your ways, the way you've been doing it works really well for the Gen X's and the boomers. But what you have to understand is it's not going to work well and you're going to get left behind if you start thinking about different ways to do it for your millennial moms and your Gen Zers and then your alphas that are coming into your practice. So again, think about this when you are thinking about this doctorless consult and knowing that maybe a doctorless consult could work really well for our three earlier generations. We probably know that our Gen Xers and our boomers that are going to come in really want to see our doctors' faces. So again, when we're coming up with our rule book and we're coming up with our strategy, we can kind of think about this a little bit and maybe even tailor it to thinking about the age of the patient or the parent that is coming in. So I want you guys to be able to be on the offense and not the defense when we look at moving through and possibly, getting into a doctorless consult. So some of the things that I want you thinking about is if you are thinking, okay, Joe, I've been sweating a lot and, I'm kind of a little antsy in my seat, but I'm still on board and I'm still listening, still got an open mind. I want to give you a couple fail safes that I want you to think about as you're thinking about doing this. First one is, I think we need a help button. So if your TC, remember, we're going to start slow. All right. And we're going to move into this. If your TC needs assistance, you guys have to have the audible button that you push. And I'm calling it audible. I made this horrible joke at Nexus. And then I realized I really don't know a lot about sports and it just failed miserably. So I won't try and do that again. But what I will say is, if your TC needs help, she has to have a way to ask for that help. So maybe it is, she's able to, she's got a way that she can easily step out of the room and go get the doctor. And the doctor knows, if she comes out within this time, that would have normally been my time that I come in. I know that I'm going to go in and help. Whatever that is, we need to make sure that your TC feels safe. And if she gets stuck in a spot, that she automatically has got a doctor that's available and you guys haven't left for lunch or left early for happy hour or whatnot, and she's on her own. So number one, we need a help button and we need the doctor available to come in if we need it. Number two, I want to make sure that you guys have a plan for, same day starts. And what I'm talking about here is, I know not every practice wants to do same day starts, or, the definition of a same day start can be a little bit different. But I think it's very important that although we are having our TC work through the steps, doctors, what I am telling you is, it is not you're out to not write up the treatment plan. You still have the obligation to review your x-rays, to write up your treatment plan, to make sure that you finalize on the health history form. So if you have a patient that goes from the room, the TC gets them to say, yes, they're moving out into the clinic. Where are you blocking your time to write up your treatment plan, to review the notes, and to make sure that you're safe, so that everybody is safe? So think about that. You may need to add, for the same day starts, maybe you're adding an extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes onto that exam just for you to take time to make sure that you're covering your bases, so that you guys aren't moving so fast that you aren't able to get what you need. Or maybe while they're doing a same day start scan, That's when you're reviewing your records. Whatever that is, however it works in your practices, you guys have to make time for this. So think about that. And then the third thing is, really, really making sure, and I know I was just talking about this a little bit with the other slide, but really making sure that you are comfortable and ready to be able to sign off on that treatment plan. So hopefully your TC is at a point where, they're kind of writing up the basic treatment plan. We're gonna, do a scan, we're gonna bond upper and lower, we're gonna level and align, we're gonna do some elastics, we're gonna do some retention. Well, that's a super basic treatment plan, it covers all the bases, but you as doctors need to fill that in. So really making sure that you've got the time to write up the official treatment plan. So think about that when you're going through this. And then finally, the last thing is really thinking about your workflow. So again, how do we make sure that we don't miss anything? Maybe it's a checklist that you have. Maybe, I know there are offices that have got all different kinds of ways that they make sure that they don't miss something along the way. But, have we reviewed and approved the treatment plan? Was the health history reviewed? Were the x-rays reviewed? Do we have the letters queued up to be sent? Were there any scripts that needed to be dealt with? Maybe was there a final custom video or phone call, to the patient, whatever that is. But think about your workflow and think about all of the things, docs, if you were completely less in the exam or less, maybe I love, like Leanne said, that kind of flyby, whatever that is. But the biggest thing is with everything, we have to have a workflow and we have to make sure that we aren't missing anything where it's causing us more stress and frustration later on. So think about that. So again, I know you guys have probably been squirming a little bit. Again, probably sweat a little bit as I've been talking through this. But I just want to tell you that there are so many possibilities. And again, because I work with startups, my job is to build the next generation of orthodontists out there. And we are constantly thinking about what are the next things, what are the newest things that we need to be doing in practices. And I truly, truly believe that in the next, 5 years or so, we are going to see more and more consults that are doctor-less, and you are going to be able to see more and more new patient exams in your practices, especially our existing ones, if we can really master this process. Remember, again, I started in a generation where it was a 4-step, and then we went to a 3-step, and then we went to a 2-step, and now we're at a 1-step. So we're on our way to doctor-less, okay? Less than a 1-step. So just keep that in mind. All right, and I want to just, really encourage you guys that the beauty of where we are at right now in our generation is that there are so many companies, OrthoFi and OrthoBanc, of course, being one of them out there, that can help us. There are so many companies that are there to help us be successful if we will just lean into them. Really look at, I look at the product of suites that OrthoFi and OrthoBanc has for, my practices. And there are so many things that help them be successful that, again, going back 30 years ago, we didn't have and we have now. So please, please, please lean into the technologies that are out there. Don't be afraid of digital. Don't be afraid of trying something new. All right. So the other thing that I really want to, just kind of as we bring this to a close here is, even though I'm saying doctor-less, what I am not saying is don't have a relationship with your patients. Again, if you have this seasoned treatment coordinator, he or she is already a master at relationships. And I know, docs, you guys also are masters, if you've been doing this for a while, at those relationships. And, I've even had some docs say, Jill, one of my favorite things of the day is to be able to be in there and meet with my patients. And so again, you have to think about this from your office, your culture. and think about, how can I leverage this to help my practice produce more, or maybe be more productive with its time, and yet find that balance with how you want to relate with your patients, how you want to still be involved. So I'm going to encourage you, leverage technology, like I was just talking about, leverage your communication channels, and then think about how this in turn can leverage your clinical chair time as you are still keeping your relationship with your patients intact. So as we kind of close this up, I'm going to give you 3 different ways that you could possibly think about implementing. So I've kind of given you all of the steps up to this point. Now we're going to talk a little bit about implementation. So the first one, I'm going to call this our kind of wading in slowly. All right. So this is for my group out there that just wants to maybe dip their toes in it a little bit. Maybe Jill, I'll try a little bit, here, versus our diving in head first. So let's start with our testing the waters group. One of the things that I want you, this is our beginning, we're taking the first step, is I want you to just start by being super intentional with looking at your daily schedule and determining which appointments, maybe so you're looking ahead and thinking about what appointments might be good for me to start with. Maybe it's a second family member that we're going to start with my TC taking it over. Maybe it's a certain age group that I'm going to start with my TC doing. Maybe it's an OBS 3 or an OBS start appointment that we're saying, okay, we're going to start those as our doctorless consults, as we're getting the rhythm and getting that dance down on how that's going to work. So this requires you and your TC to come up with a good game plan and to really work into that. So again, we're just testing the waters. We're seeing if we like it or not. We're not diving in head first. Okay. The next group out there is going to be, some of you that, are going to kind of wade in. So you're like, Jill, I was uncomfortable, but I think I'm getting what you're saying here. I think I'm feeling pretty good about this. I think that I am going to be one of those docs that wants to kind of move in this direction. So what I want you to do is keep your exact same schedule, come up, get all those game pieces in place that I talked about. But what I want you to do is, kind of like we were dipping our toes in, we're going to identify the ones that the TC is going to be doing. And we're going to, maybe even say, okay, she's going to take them all. We tried it. Now we're ready to move to the next level. But I still want you to keep your allotted time. Remember, you did those time schedules. I want you to keep those allotted times set up so that, doc, that doesn't mean you're doing anything else in the clinic. That means you're waiting in the office in the event that your TC needs you. She's got that help button. She's got that I need you to come in, so that you're not interrupting anything in the clinic. You still got your dedicated doctor time for coming into that consult room, but you're just waiting. You're just on hold in the wings, waiting in case he or she needs you. So that's our second one. And then the third one is, let's say you tested the waters, that worked. You tested okay, I'm going to try it for 3 months, keeping my schedule the same. Now, maybe you're like, Jill, I am ready. We are diving in. This is where you guys have got your playbook. You guys are comfortable. Now you are completely taking that doctor time in the new patient exam out. You're shortening those exams. You're really looking at how to maximize your schedule. And you guys are off and running. And, again, you got to remember, this isn't for everybody. There may be patients that you set up, like we talked about, those Gen Xers or, boomers that are coming in, where you're saying, hey, that's part of our, our no fly list. We're still going to keep doctor appointments for those or whatever. But this is where you are making a commitment to change your schedule and to alter the future of your consults and how they are going to happen in your practice. And I believe if you guys take the steps, you take the time, you don't dive in right away, but you take the time to do this properly in a 6-month period, you could have a totally different way that you are working and working with your patients. So that is going to be diving in. And, as we kind of just finished this up. One of my favorite books out there is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'm sure many of you have read this. If you haven't, definitely on the reading list. But I just want to leave you with this. All big things come from small beginnings. The seed of every habit is a single tiny decision. So we start small, we pivot, we make decisions, and eventually you too could be doing doctorless consults. So kind of the 3 takeaways: doctorless consults can help you leverage your time. I truly believe that. If you are looking for ways to get more patients into your practice, if you are at that point, you can do this. We made these changes over the last 30 years in our industry. This is where the future is going. I 100% believe you cannot do this overnight. You have to have a plan. You have to plan this out and be strategic about where you're going and what you're going to be doing. And each of you have your own individual practice with your own individual culture. This may or may not be right for you, and that's okay. Just like with everything out there, it's okay to be an individual practice, but just know that if you are willing and looking at doing something and finding a way to leverage your time, this is another option for you. So I just want to say thank you so much for having me be a part of this webinar series. And if any of you have got questions, like Marla said, I work with startups, I work with doctors who are 8 years to retirement, and I work with doctors even in the middle there. So if you've got new team members, you're looking to do something different, we're definitely here to help. And I'm going to do a shameless plug. I have a podcast out there called Hey Docs. It's on every single podcast platform, and it is kind of geared towards startups, but honestly, I've got just amazing guests, and it just really covers the gamut, and it really is great for any doctor out there. So please, if you're looking for a new podcast, it drops every Thursday.
Great, Jill. Yes, we love your podcast. So I would strongly encourage everyone to listen to that. That's fantastic. And this was such fascinating information. We do have a few questions, if you don't mind answering a few questions for us.
Well, I will do my best. I'm going to take a drink of water as you're asking me a question.
Sure. So one person asked the question, there are different ways to calculate conversion rate. How would you think is the best way to calculate that?
Oh my goodness, nothing like a whammy right off of the start here. So when I am working, now I am in an agreement with whoever just asked this. There are multiple ways to calculate. I follow and I train that we take our new patient exams, we subtract out any OBS appointments or patients that directly say they will not start treatment. Those then become viable starts. And then we take our contracts for that month divided by the viable starts, and that gives us our conversion ratio. Now, I'm going to just follow this up with, I know we have to add our OBS back in. And when I'm working with clients, we call them OBS 3s or OBS readies, or different people call them different things. If you have an OBS 3 or an OB ready, they come back in and get counted back in. So I know there's a lot of different ways, but that's how we do it. I always tell my offices, we track every month, we average over the quarter, and that really gives us a good understanding of how our TCs convert. We're looking really for that consistent quarterly conversion to tell us where our TCs are converting at. If you want more questions, call me, set up a call with me. I can go over that more, but that's the down and dirty way to talk, to give that to you.
Okay, great. So there are a couple questions around scripting and how to communicate this to patients. So specifically, should they be communicating to patients that this will be a doctorless exam when they arrive, or let them just be surprised? Should they not mention that on the phone? So kind of scripting around what they'd say on the front side of this.
Yeah, I think it can go both ways. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be kind of vague about that. I really think that it is up to the practice to decide. Again, this kind of goes to the practice and the culture of the practice and what they're comfortable with, because I do believe a lot of patients, I know this is hard to hear, just don't care. They don't care like we think they do that a doctor is going to be there. They care that the doctor is there and that they're reviewing their records and that they're using their expertise to give them a treatment plan, and they care that the doctor is going to be there getting treatment. But they might not care as much as you think about physically meeting the doctor at that appointment. So I think each office has got to go with what they feel most comfortable with, and maybe even what their community is okay with. Test those waters. You can always change your scripting.
And kind of back to along the lines of that community. So we have one person asking, what questions could they add to their patient intake form that would help them to determine, like, this is a good one to do a doctorless consult? Are there
maybe is time a concern for you? Would you be comfortable meeting with our experienced treatment coordinator at the exam? Are you wanting to meet with the doctor? I think there are, just kind of those leading but open questions that, that could maybe get them to be like, oh, if they're like, yes, I want to meet with the doctor, and yes, it's important to me that, that I spend, my hour with the doctor, whatever it is, you're going to know, okay, that's one that needs to meet with the doctor. And I'm just going to say, go back to what I was talking a little bit about generations too. I think, you can pretty much across the board, if it's, an adult that's 50 or older coming in, they're probably going to be more inclined to want to meet with the doctor than a 30, 28, 30, 32, 35-year-old mom who's coming in, who's busy and got a lot of kids.
Right, exactly. We did just have one more question come in. I thought we were about finished, but what happens if the TC treatment plans something and then the doctor wants to add an appliance that will increase the original treatment fee? So kind of thinking, that the TC thinks it's going one way and then the doctor changes something that's going to affect the fee.
Yeah, I think again, that's part of your pre-game planning, right, guys? So if you guys are, if you have a fee schedule that is dependent upon appliances, then I think especially for that, the TC and the doctor are really going to have to come up with a game plan. How do we handle that? Maybe that's one where, you're like, hey, we got the start. I saved a lot of time. Maybe it's not worth the extra $600 to go back and tell a patient they need to pay something different. Maybe that's a learning experience for the TC and the doctor to get on the same page and say, I was looking at this. I know you identified that there were crowding, but see how it's more of a V instead of a U. I probably would have done an expander. Next time, be on the lookout for that. Or maybe it's go high, and we can always give a patient, it's always better to be like, oh, and by the way, after reviewing that, doesn't look like we need that expander after all. So you're going to save another $600. So I think that's just that verbiage and scripting that goes on that front end of the doctor and the TC getting really on track with that. And, I would say I'd take a start over a $600 appliance charge anytime.
Exactly. Yeah, that's some great advice. Jill, if you don't mind, stop and sharing your screen, I'm going to share something with the viewers.
Let's see. Okay, I think I stopped it. Is that true?
You did. Great. Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much, Jill, for being with us tonight. This has been just great. And I did want to mention to all the listeners that we do have more of these Expert Insight webinars coming up over the next few weeks and months. So be sure you'll get emails inviting you to register. As you can tell, some great content, mostly that came out of our Nexus meeting earlier this year. And Jill's done a fabulous job delivering the message tonight about Doctorless consults. And then also, if any of you are interested in a demo of OrthoFi, we have some great discounts on setup fees based on your attendance at this webinar. So use the QR code to request a demo, and we'd love to have you join us. And thank you all so much for your time. Thank you, Jill, for another fabulous presentation. We always love hearing from you. And everybody, tune in to Jill's Hey Docs podcast and join us again next time. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.